Hello! That was good. And welcome to some psychology revision. With me, Will.
And me, Sarah.
Today we're doing part 3 of research methods. This is the last part of Unit 1.
Oh, yes.
Also relevant for Unit 2 of psychology, AQA Spec. Also relevant to some other ones, which is always lovely. By Spec, I mean Spec, I don't even know, Specification. Okay, kicking off with some ethical issues. The following guidelines have been drawn up by the BPS. Protection from harm.
Informed consent.
Avoiding deception.
Debriefing.
Right to withdraw.
Confidentiality.
Privacy.
What use is made of the research?
Note, the above are ethical guidelines. Ethical issues are deception, right to withdraw, and informed consent, etc. Understand?
Yes.
Good. Ways of dealing with ethical issues. Debriefing must be carried out, always, particularly when consent has not been fully informed and when deception has been used. Also, participants should be given the right to withhold data at the end of the experiment when they know all of the facts. If they do not, then this is supposed to be like they have never taken part.
Names should never be used. Instead, participants should be given a number.
Yes. So that's ways of dealing. There are a few more, which you should know. If you don't know them, you're bad.
You should know them from the last unit.
Yes, you should. Or not if they're doing this first like they're meant to be. Designing questions in a questionnaire. Avoid the following.
Leading questions.
Ambiguity.
Loaded questions.
Jargon.
Double-barreled questions.
Negatives.
Complex questions.
And impossible questions. One little thing, a little side note. Jargon, I find very ironic because the word for complex words is in itself kind of
complex.
Yeah. So that's always
hypocritical.
Oh no, it's ironic. That's what I said. Woman.
Hypocritical.
Woman. Also in a questionnaire, you may include the following. Filler questions, where you include some irrelevant questions to hide the main purpose of the study.
Easy questions, inclusion at the beginning, and to allow participants to relax and encourage them to complete their questionnaire.
Lie detection questions, e.g. have you ever told a lie? To test for social desirability bias. If you get a positive social desirability bias, then discard any other data with that person.
Tendency to answer yes. Participants show tendency to answer yes, so balance yes, no responses.
On to reliability and validity. Everyone always gets these mixed up. It's horrendous. Bad, people. Bad. Results of studies need to be both reliable and valid. Reliability, Sarah.
Results are reliable if they are consistent. For example, if an experiment is replicated, then if the results are the same each time, it's reliable.
How do you assess and improve reliability, Sarah?
Partial or complete replication of studies. In observation studies, behaviour should be observed by more than one observer. If both observers agree, then the data is reliable. That is inter-observer reliability. Behaviour checklists help with this. Retest reliability. Test or questionnaire given twice over time, with a gap between so you don't remember the previous answers. To check its stability over time.
Validity now. The results are valid if they are accurate and are measuring what they are supposed to be measuring. There are two types, internal and external. Internal validity, this is the extent to which the finding of the experiment can be attributed to the effect of the IV, and not, for example, due to demand characteristics or confounding variables. This is sometimes called the experimental validity. To establish internal validity, you need a control of extraneous variables which may affect the DV, e.g. by using repeated measures, controlling situational variables, investigators' variables, by reducing demand characteristics, investigator effects, and social desirability bias. External validity is the extent to which the research findings can be generalised. If it has a high external validity, it does if the results can be generalised to other populations. Population validity, other situations outside the research setting, ecological validity, and other times, temporal validity. Establishing external validity of experiments is...
Sample needs to be representative, and partial replication.
And establishing the validity of tests.
Predictive validity. This is where the scores can predict future behaviour. For example, if GCSE scores can predict AS grades, then they have predictive validity.
Analysis of quantitative data. I find that this is covered at GCSE Maths, and so I'm going to whiz through this very, very fast. Mode, the most common score. Simple as that. If there isn't a most common score, there isn't a mode. That's as simple as that. The median. You arrange the scores in order from the lowest to the highest and take the middle one. If there are two middle ones, the median is the average between the two middle ones. So add them together and divide them by 2. Finds halfway. The mean. You add up all the total scores and divide by the number of scores. They're all measures of central tendency because it's finding the middle of your data set. Measures of spread, you can have the range and the standard deviation. The range is obtained by simply subtracting the lowest score from the highest one. Standard deviation is the measure, this is the measure of variability of the scores from the mean. The larger the standard deviation, the larger the spread of the data, and the further the scores are away from the mean. 95% of all values lie within 2 standard deviations from the mean. And if you do AS statistics, you should have a massive table, and it's something to do with that. There we are, into thingy there. And if you're not doing AS statistics and maths,
ignore what you just said.
Why aren't you? Frankly, why aren't you doing it? It's awesome.
Because they might not like
it's
maths.
awesome. Everyone loves maths. Don't be silly. Strengths of a mode. You only measure what can be used for nominal or category data. It's also not influenced by extreme scores. Weaknesses. It can be misleading if a top or a bottom score is the most frequent, e.g. scores that are 2, 2, 3, 4, 9, 9, 9, 9, 9. Nice example. Strength of a median. It's not distorted by extreme freak values like 2, 2, 2, 3, 4, 7, 8, 52. 52 is an outlier. Well, yeah. Weaknesses, it can be distorted by scores that are clustered in low and high groups, e.g. 1, 2, 3, 6, 27, 48, 63, and the mean will be 6, which ignores like half your data. Strengths of the mean, the most sensitive measure of central tendency as it takes into account the size of all values. But weaknesses is that a single extreme score or an outlier can distort the mean. The strength of a range is it's quick and easy to calculate, and the weakness of a range is it's distorted by extreme freak values, very much so. Strength of a standard deviation, it's most sensitive to measurement. It is the most sensitive measurement as it takes into account the size of all the available data. It's not so affected by outliers, but weaknesses is it's more time-consuming to calculate.
Note, the mean normally is the most suitable measure for central tendency as it takes into account the size of every participant's data, but do not use if there is an obvious outlier or a freak large number or a small value. If there is an outlier, the median is suitable.
The mode can be used for nominal data in categories, etc. For example, if a study is looking at people's choice of a pet, then the mode can be used to determine the most frequent, such as a dog usually comes out as. Right, on to displaying all that lovely stuff.
Yes, you can display it in various different ways. First way is graphs and charts.
Go! Well, yeah, you can display it different ways. The first way is a bar chart.
A bar chart. Choose a bar chart if the data is in categories that are distinct from each other and are not continuous.
Nominal data, so again in categories. Remember that, not continuous. Histogram.
Choose a histogram if the data is in categories and that are continuous with each other. For example, age 11 to 20, 21 to 30, etc.
Frequency polygon.
Choose a frequency polygon if the data is like a histogram but you want to compare the two sets of data.
And choose a scatter graph
if you're doing a correlation. For example, looking at the relationship between two sets of scores, e.g. stress and illness.
Yeah, really. Last thing in research methods is content analysis, and we've left the biggest and arguably the hardest thing till last.
But it's not that hard.
Yeah, okay, but you
It sounds confusing.
Content analysis allows a researcher to look at psychological variables and extract both qualitative and quantitative data. Content analysis is basically a form of indirect observation because you are not observing people directly but observing them through the artefacts they produce. These artefacts can be TV programs, books, songs, and all of that. The process involved is similar to any observational sample and how frequently, for example, which TV channels to include, how many programs, what length of time, and also what behavioural categories need to be used. Once the items to be recorded have been chosen, a checklist can be developed to record the observations from the sample. Strengths of a content analysis.
Content analysis has high ecological validity because they're based on direct observations of what people actually do, so real communications which are current and relevant, such as recent newspapers or children's books in print. Also, when sources can be retained or assessed by others, for example, back copies of magazines or videos of people giving speeches, findings can be replicated and so tested for
reliability. There we go, that was good. Weaknesses of content analysis. Observer bias reduces the objectivity and validity of the findings because different observers may interpret the meaning of the behavioural categories differently. It's likely to be culture biased because interpretation of verbal or written content will be affected by the language and the culture of the observer and the behavioural categories used. Analysing qualitative data, for example transcripts of interviews with recovering anorexic as to why they believe they had a disorder, is important. It's but hard to analyse. And with content analysis, that's kind of important because that's where you get most of your qualitative data, I would say. The challenge when presented with pages of written material and or audio, video recordings is to find ways of summarising it so that conclusions can be drawn. And content analysis can then be used for this. First of all, the researchers will need to categorise the data in some way. The researcher may write down pre-existing categories that are regarded as appropriate categories before beginning the research, e.g. media, family issues, peer pressure, all of that. Also, emergent categories may be listed, where the categories or the themes that emerge when examining the data are recorded. The frequency of occurrences in each category may be counted. Thus, qualitative data is turned into quantitative data, and then conclusions can be drawn.
Yay.
A content analysis allows data to be more readily analysed and compared, but the process will lose some of the in-depth information. That's it for research methods, done in 12 minutes.
Like you predicted.
Like I predicted. Predictive validity. Yeah. Thank you for listening to Research Methods. That is the end of Unit 1. If you're doing Unit 1, thank you very much for listening and keep listening to the videos for your exam.
Dude.
Any advice we have? Do past paper questions. That is the best way to revise.
And
everyone says it because it's true.
Videos.
Keep listening to these videos, yeah.
If they help you.
If they help you. If not, just like and subscribe and then stop watching and listening.
Yes.
Yeah, that's all from here at WAHEY Productive, Will and Sarah. We've done psychology revision for you. You're very welcome, and thank you for listening. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.